And we're live. Welcome, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. We're here for a very special first edition of LinkedIn Live with Belvera Partners. Now, Belvera Partners is a specialist PR agency solely serving the travel tech industry. And today we're going to hear from them about how travel tech brands can get the most out of events. Now, I know that the three of us on the call have been to a massive amount of events this year, and it's something that I get asked very regularly. So I think this is going to be full and packed of information for the industry. So welcome, Vera, and welcome, Roman.
Thank you for having us.
Good morning.
Good morning. Fantastic. Where are you calling from, Roman?
I'm calling from a hotel room. On the road, as always.
Classic change. Exactly. This man is on the road, many times a year. And I think the first question that I really wanted to ask you before we dive into the rest of the show is briefly tell us, Roman, what you do at Belvera Partners, who you serve, and what industry challenges that you're solving.
We are a PR consultancy that just focuses 100% on the travel tech space. If you're vaguely interested in having PR support and you want someone who only works with travel technology companies like you, then get in touch and we can explain more about what that involves.
Fantastic. And you can also look on their LinkedIn. There's a great website explaining what goes on for Belvera. So let's dive in. The first question is, with so many events, as we know, it can be quite overwhelming, both for vendors and for also hotel brands to know which events to go to, but focusing on vendors, focusing on travel tech, which events would you say are key, and how should travel tech brands navigate that choice?
It's hard to choose one, right? Because we wrapped up a whole season of trade show events. I think for me personally, high tech stood out. Not because it's just like everyone's B2B and it's a potential client for Belvera, but you could really feel the energy in the room, the momentum, and it really reminded me that if you come prepared for these type of events, they're an absolute launch pads. They're not just a network opportunity. And for the North American market, obviously that is very strong. That was a big one for us.
Agree. I think high tech was a very good addition this year. I mean, I was there with you guys walking the floor. It was very exciting. It's very spacious. It's very local, and all the big players seem to be there, which is obviously something important. Roman, how would you sort of recommend to your clients that they choose events? Like what's the criteria really on investing what is quite a bit of budget?
It's a lot of budget, and it's a lot of resources, time, energy, effort, jet lag. I think you've got to be, you've got to be a bit ruthless on the one hand, but you've got to be a bit open on the other and experiment. The important thing is to really have a strong understanding of why you're going to that event. Is it just sales, or is it something else? And who are the audience at that event? So we regularly hear people coming back from conferences saying, I went to meet hoteliers, but they weren't hoteliers, and so it was not a hotelier event, or it's aimed at the tech vendors or what have you. So you've got to have a really strong understanding of who's going, and then what the format of it's going to be like. There are some events that are more like trade shows, and it's thousands of people, and it's meeting, stand, meeting, and there are others that are more conference, networking, debates, discussions, and you need to have that sort of understanding. Some of that research you can do yourself, some of it you can talk to people in the industry, and then obviously an easy solution is chat to us. We go to these events and we can give people guidance.
Yeah. How would you typically sort of prepare for one of those events? For example, a trade show, walk the floor. What would be your prep from previous to that event?
Well, again, prep is very important. Just sort of turning up, is not enough. Just having bought a stand is not enough. So it is all about the prep and the research. Find out from the event organizers, find out from people like us, find out from your contacts. Is there an app you need to download? Is there something you need to register on? Sometimes, they can have events, parties, networking sessions, speed dating, whatever, and they can be all signed up well in advance. really prepare. It's like people going on holiday, same thing. You don't wait till you get to the resort to find out whether or not you can book the massage, or there's day cruises or something like that. Or if you do, you can find out that it's all sold out and you're sat there in your hotel room with nothing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I know, Vera, you're really, really diligent with that. Like, I really admire your event strategy in particular, because I know how, you get your meetings in advance and you always have a very, very packed schedule. Was that the case at High Tech? Do you think that's why it was so successful for you, the preparation part?
Well, yeah, for us and for our clients, right? It's the typical 3 Ps that you could say is like the event growth formula. So the presence, positioning, and proof, right? So presence is like where you show up and how often. Like Roman said, we're pretty much everywhere. For the positioning is what is your narrative? Like how do you want to be remembered? The visual identity, the tone. Again, going back to what Roman mentioned, to be having a clear goal and target before you go, and then get proof of that. Like, don't get forgotten after 48 hours after the show. Have social proof, have media mentions, speaking slots ready, investor interest, if that's what you're looking for. The proof is where we have the strongest point in Belvera, and it's always all about showing the right people that you're not just present, you're credible.
I love that. So apart from preparing beforehand, it's also part of the preparation is also like, okay, so what am I going to say? What's my elevator pitch for this specific event? Because it could change, right? In events, depending on the attendees, and what am I going to say? So you're not just caught short. And then obviously the follow-up's really important as well. So yeah, thank you for that.
It's important to be coordinated as well, because although everyone going to these events across a team will have slightly different messaging, what we see sometimes are organizations where you have people telling very, very different stories about their businesses. If you put them side by side, wouldn't really look that credible, and so there's all kinds of things you can do to make sure that you're staying on page, but prep is an organization is the main one.
Yeah, and you mentioned High Tech. What I noticed is that the momentum management was really strong. People were following up fast post the event, and that's often where the real ROI is made. So you need to kind of keep that momentum going. And when you just jump between shows like we do, it's hard to follow up. But just with High Tech, I noticed that people were on it, and they got traction right away, as well as us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know that post High Tech, many of us experienced a flurry of similar emails, from the marketing departments. And I think it's also interesting, you're a PR agency, and it's like, how can we think outside of the box as well to stay top of our mind with our clients post events? For example, doing a LinkedIn Live like this, or publishing an article, or doing some post event interviews, that are slightly different to the usual email. Nice to see you, let's catch up. So yeah, I'm sure PR plays a huge part in that as well, that post-event catch up.
Yeah, definitely.
Brilliant. So a lot of companies do show up to events, they prepare, they spend the money, and then they don't have the follow-up. Well, what other kind of PR actions can we be taking in general around events, or post events, that the company provides, that we can just showcase for a minute?
Other events on the sort of the edges of the conferences themselves, you mean?
Yeah, and kind of post-event actions that we would take with our clients.
Well, other events in terms of often you've got the official conference schedule, and then there's the shadow or unofficial fringe stuff. And again, talk to people, look online, so you find out a lot of LinkedIn nowadays. We can help clients. We know a lot of those private parties and things that are going on. We often throw our own networking event. So that's very important, and that's harder to access because that's not there's not an official sort of agenda. So we'd encourage people, again, planning, talking to people, networking when you're at these events. Ask people, where are you going tonight? What is it you're going to do later today? What things you've got coming up. In terms of actions for doing post events, Well, one of the things we like to do with clients when we're at these events is make video recordings that you can then put, later on. Some of those can be directly linked back to the event. Last week we were at High Tech or whatever, and here's a video recording we did, an interview or something. Some of them can just be generic stuff that you can put out, but there's a lot that can be done content-wise in the weeks following an event.
Yeah, I'd say you need to work on credibility that lives way beyond the event. So, like Roman said, articles, photos, quotes that you can use in your decks, LinkedIn, and the follow-ups. So again, it's not just about the booth that you have on the event. It's about the momentum you build up before, during, and after.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it can bring so much with it if it's done right. I completely agree. I see that. I really think events are the backbone of our industry at the moment, because we work remotely, we don't often see each other, and events can also be a point of contact for teams as well, right? Because I know a lot of teams have partner events, so not necessarily even client events like Belvera does, and then they also have team building at the same time. So it's kind of this whole flurry of activity around the business. So one thing I wanted to ask you, I know that when you guys are at events, you're often very, very busy, and you often even bring a camera crew with you, because you're not only attending and meeting with clients, you're actually serving your clients with PR material, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
How does that work? What kind of services are you providing during an event typically to your clients?
So during the event, again, like getting them on stage, whether it's speaking on a panel or in a podcast, lining up, interviews with journalists, creating that content on site. So if they have a stand and we have a camera crew on site, definitely capture that so that can reuse that material, and introducing them to people who actually matter to their business.
Yeah. Strategic introductions, that's also key, isn't it? And I know you guys do quite a lot of that at events.
Yeah, both investor relationships and strategic technical partners.
Often for us, that's just as simple as throwing a cocktail party or a dinner. But then, of course, we still do, one-on-one meetings and so on. That can work. LinkedIn lives, webinars, that kind of thing, like we're doing here. That kind of content can work really well. We run a studio at many of these events. We invite people up to have their photography done and do some video content there as well. So I think people need to think about what it is they're doing on their stand that gets traffic and engages people.
That's a good point, actually. Like if you have an original stand that people come not just to talk about your product, but if you have like some form of fun activity. So we had the photography, but at a recent trade show I saw, there was like a basketball, what do you call it? Like one of those games, and then you compete, and then the winner gets, a free hotel night. And of course, everyone wanted to just come and play for a second and not just talk business all day. And then, of course, the merch, like popcorn or something fun. Again, that's very memorable for when you visit their stand.
Yeah, those kind of things can work well. But it's all about the prep and conscious sort of prep and organisation ahead of these things to really maximise most of it. It's like an important sports match or something like that in your calendar. The work's done. Most of the work's done before you even step foot on the trade show floor.
Absolutely. And I think it's interesting just to go back a bit to speaking spots at events, because I know that you have actually somebody in the team who's dedicated to filling those speaking spots for Belvera clients at the most important events that we have in our industry. So can you just tell me why is it important, and what kind of panels have you managed to get for your clients, and at which events?
This is a big part of what we do. As you say, we have a team member who sort of coordinates that. Everyone's involved, but there's one person who drives it. Many conferences, there's a commercial element. You can pay to be on stage. Not all, but at some. But a large amount of people on stage or in the breakout sessions, all that kind of stuff. whether it's at conferences, events where they're more content focused, or whether it be the trade shows where they have stages where they do these things. A significant amount of people on stage are there in an editorial capacity, i.e. they've not paid. But you need to know when to approach the conference organisers, the topics to pitch to them, how to organise it. It's not just enough to sort of drop an email, say, hey, I'd love to help if you need me. You need to set it all up for them, give them some real content. We're doing that all the time, and so consequently, the conference organisers come to us asking us for help in advance.
Yeah, and usually at these events, you would have the award ceremonies happening at the same time. So that same dedicated person we have in our team would submit on their behalf. So it's great if you're already at the show and you get an award for your segment. That just builds on that credibility that you're the leader of the sector.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very good point. Yeah, awards and other types of things they do that aren't just strictly talks or presentations. Occasionally you get pitches. The private networking sessions, CEO dinners, those kind of things. So it's all about the prep. And what we have, because we've got lots of clients and people that we can present in that, and it's not just clients we're organising for that as well. Sometimes businesses we know where we think that they just fit in. That means that we have the relationships and the inertia with the organisers. If you're an in-house person working for one company, you can only call up and talk about yourself. We can call up and talk about the 30 or so more active clients that we have, and that that means that people pick up the phone to us.
It depends on the size and the goal of the company. If it's a startup, introduce them to investors, they need to have that 30-second pitch ready. Whereas if it's an established company with lots of data that they can use and present, hot topics and trends on stage, then that's for a different type of audience. And maybe, they're on stage a bit longer, and that's where, we come in as well and help them with that.
I've seen a lot of companies try and time releases, like press releases, for during an event or just before an event. Why is that important?
Because it builds the buzz, it builds the momentum ahead of the event. You don't want to get to the event and start pitching and no one knows who you are, and that's why
you need talking points as well.
Yeah.
If you go into even for sales meetings, if you just go in with sales material, it looks a bit aggressive and self-serving. Whereas if you've got things to talk about, like research you've done, some news in your business that's genuinely of interest, a new person, often sometimes the clients say, oh yeah, but appointment releases, who cares if someone new's joined? Well, actually lots of people care about that, and that's a nice sort of soft way to get into conversation. Besides, if you've appointed someone, especially someone senior in your business, why wouldn't you want to be shouting about it? That's an asset for your company. You wouldn't not tell people you've launched a product or opened a new office. So yeah, buzz, conversation points, and it all focused around a specific moment.
Absolutely. And I always say that communication is not just one-sided about giving somebody information. It's actually about giving them some little crumbs or some little hooks that they can remember, talk back to you about, and that starts, like you say, a conversation. Because at the end of the day, that's what we want: the introduction, the talking points, the conversation, and then the ongoing relationship that hopefully will turn into some good business for both parties. So I think that's interesting. And then I also think, obviously, being having coverage on LinkedIn, for example, can really help in advance with events. So I definitely found last time at High Tech that I met a bunch of people I've never met in real life. If you think about that as already being a warm lead, when you're walking the floor, people are not seeing you for the first time. They know you, they know what you do, and it can really help to create the buzz as well. So that kind of PR, LinkedIn, warm up, and then taking advantage of the events. Fantastic. I think we've covered a lot about events there. Is there anything else that you'd like to cover off before we start to wrap up?
No, I think it's again, like, the key message is, if you don't control the narrative, someone else will. So trade shows are a crowded place, noisy, competitive. You have to walk in with a clear vision of what you want to say, who you want to meet, how you want to keep the story going after the event, right? So showing up is good, but you need to know what event is more relevant for you, and strategic presence is better. Well, that's the main point.
For me as well, an additional point would be, how you measure value, the return on your investment, if you like. For some people that's just sales, and that's an important measure. I'd imagine in many cases it's about sales, but it's not the only measure. If you go there and you meet people who then become one of your lead investors in your business, surely that's a good return on investment, even if you didn't make any sales. If your team or team member goes there and learns something new and has some insights that you then use to transform your business, again, was it just about the sales? If you've had a kind of eureka moment. For some people, there's events they go to where it's networking with technology partners who they bring in. How do you monetize that? I don't know, but you've got to think about that bigger picture. And then there's the overall reputation building. We have clients who speak at some of these events where there might only be 10, 20 people in the room, and then they say, well, were they the people that we want to talk to? But the answer is that if you put it on your LinkedIn and you were telling that to everyone you've been meeting in the previous month, I'm going to this event and I'm going to be speaking on stage. What's the kind of, reputation and credibility element to that? And if someone then Googles you, they'll see that you spoke at that, you're an expert on that topic. So you really got to consider the whole, 360-degree sort of picture of all the benefits. And that's quite hard to measure. You'll never do it completely and accurately. You certainly won't be able to do it in any kind of, scientific or objective way. But at the very least, throw that into the conversation. Then when internally you're having conversations about, is it worth spending this amount of time and money on attending this event? We're going for hoteliers and they're not there, or we want tech partners and they're not there. Think about all those things. There's a reason why people go to events and pay the money and so on. Think what that is.
Absolutely. And so what next events are coming up for the two of you? What's your next event, Vera?
We have a busy H2 ahead. Starting in September, we have Skift in New York, Focusrite San Diego, obviously a World Travel Market in London. We're doing also PR for World Aviation Festival. We're going to ITB Asia, Web and Travel Singapore, you name it. There's so many.
Wow, you better have a good rest over the summer, because until Christmas you sound very busy. That's fantastic.
We're taking a little break now.
A little break.
Certainly a lot of events on the horizon. And Arrival in Washington DC. There'll be the Thayer event, the annual Investor Day that takes place in Washington DC in late October. And then there's smaller regional events. Future Travel event in Barcelona in I think it's October this year, not December like it normally is. So there's a great many. We keep a calendar of these things. If you subscribe to our newsletter every 2 weeks, we send a calendar for all the events and other relevant things happening in our industry over the coming weeks. So sign up for that, and you'll get that in your inbox every 2 weeks.
I have to say that is a great little newsletter, because it's super short and to the point, and it just tells you which events are coming up and which special days are coming up, and it's really like a 1 minute read, and it's good.
It's
definitely
really
put in the show notes. Okay, so to finish off, I just wanted to ask you both one more question. If you had to choose one key goal that every travel tech professional should keep in mind when going to their next event, what would it be, Vera?
One key goal?
Yeah.
I think it's like to know the goal itself, right? To know what you want to get out of it. I mean, we see so many travel tech founders attending events, and very few of them actually turn into actual outcomes. And again, it's about showing up without a plan, or they don't have any media outreach, no speaking ambition, no prep for the spokespeople, and worst of all, again, no content plan for how to capture what they're doing while they're there. So I would say to just have that plan ready That's the goal itself, and meet
The goal
as
is-
many people as possible, but needs to be relevant to your brand.
The goal is have a goal.
The goal is to have a goal, yeah.
Love it. Roman, what one goal would you define for any travel tech professional for their next event?
I think similar to Vera, really, you know, have very clear why it is you're going there. You know, most of the time you're paying money for the ticket, certainly paying money for your flights, the hotels, accommodation, the value you place on your time, your body, you know, just jet lag and all the rest of it. So have very clear why we're here, and what can we do to prepare and you know, within reason, make the most out of that in advance when you're there and following it. I think there's a lot of people who have very good conversations at trade shows that they never then follow up on, or they get an email and they then look back and think, oh, in the moment, was it worth it? You know, and they don't follow up on it. So if on reflection you're finding you had a lot of wasted conversations, you're going to ask yourself why you did that. But it would be all the prep and particular, you know, for next year, for 2026, you know, start afresh with your agenda. Just because you've gone to conferences every year for years doesn't mean you should go, and just because you've never gone to something doesn't mean that you shouldn't. Have a wider look around, and that's where we help a lot of our clients often by saying, okay, let's, you know, have you considered this event? Did you know this? Did you know that? And there's always something that comes up. People say, oh, I didn't know that those are the people who attended, or I didn't know that happened in Europe now, or you know, near to where they're based. We even see people sometimes not going to conferences that are in their own city, because they didn't know it was coming to their city.
Or they only have salespeople on the stand, and there's no thought leadership. There's no credibility or visibility of the executives. So
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, we've got No Vacancy London, you know, which is new next year. So there's always new events popping up or events expanding into new territories. Love it. So you heard it here, everyone. Sign up to the Belvera newsletter and you'll get all the events coming up. Thank you so much. I think this has been very enlightening what to do pre, during, and post event. And if you need anything else, reach out to any of the team, especially Vera and Roman, and they'll be happy to help. Until next time, guys, thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. It's been great fun.
Have a good day, everybody. Bye-bye.